Hello, everyone. Welcome to Or This. This is my Monday morning quarterbacking of the scriptures and the sermon from the previous Sunday, and this video is reflecting on Sunday, August 9th. The scriptures assigned for the day were 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 9 through 18, Psalm 85, verses 8 through 13, Romans chapter 10, verses 5 through 15, and Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33. In my sermon over the weekend, I really didn't spend a whole lot of time focusing on the particular situation of Peter getting out of the boat in the middle of strong wind and waves to walk towards Jesus on the water. By the way, it's the story in which the disciples are in a boat and the wind and the waves pick up and are strong and push them out into the middle of the sea. And then Jesus appears on the water and they see him and think he's a ghost. But then Jesus says, it is I. And Peter says, well, if it is you, then tell me to come out into the water with you. And Jesus says, come. Peter goes out. And as he's walking part of the way, all of a sudden he starts to sink. And he says, Lord, save me. And Jesus comes and pulls him out and says, you have little faith. Why did you doubt? Okay, there's your quick Reader's Digest condensed version of the gospel for the day. And while I did talk about Jesus save, how Jesus comes to us in relationship to help us in times of struggle and fear, I didn't really talk about the whole situation of Peter walking on the water and then sinking. And it's not the direction, it's not that I didn't want to, it's just not the direction the Spirit really led me to preach this time around. But it is an interesting and confusing situation for, in my opinion. I said during the children's message, which one of you would any of us have volunteered to go out on the water and walk with Jesus in all the wind and waves? And my daughter, of course, says, I would have. I'm not sure how many of us would have, to be honest. It just seems like a little bit of a little bit of a impulsive thing to do, is what I wanted to say. It's very impulsive. Peter comes across as being somewhat impulsive throughout the Gospels, so I guess this is a little bit in line with what Peter does and his character. But anyway, I don't know why he does it. I don't know why he even suggests that he do it. There are those who say, so disciples are those who need to live out the ways, the ways that their rabbi teaches. And so a good disciple learns to do what his rabbi does. And therefore, with Jesus being the rabbi, the disciples should be able to do what the rabbi does. And that's why Peter requests to walk on water, assuming that if his rabbi can walk on water, he can as well. And we do know he does at first, but then when he gets scared, he starts to sink. So there is that explanation. So we can discuss that. You could think about that all you want. On the other hand, there is the part of the story that is a testimony, and that is the fact that when Peter was sinking, Jesus came and pulled him out. When Peter was sinking, frightened and sinking, he cried out to Jesus, and Jesus pulled him up and brought him to safety. And so there is a sense in which, even though it might seem like it's a negative thing that Peter started sinking, by looking at the way in which Jesus reached out to him, there is a story of witness right there in witnessing to Jesus' ability to come to Peter's aid to pull him out, but also witnessing to the great care and mercy that Jesus had for Peter, for his life. And so one of the things that we sometimes forget about when it comes to faith is that while we may not want to talk about the struggles of our lives, or we may not want to talk about the times when we've messed up, yet in those times when if the mercy or healing or forgiveness of Jesus made a difference for us, made a big difference for us in those moments, then we have a witness, we have a story to share with others. So a few years ago, might have been more than a few years ago at this point, because I used to watch Good Morning America, and Robin Roberts was going, I think, for some treatment for cancer, and she would talk about making your mess your message, and I believe there were other people's stories who came on and talked about the struggles that they had with various things. A lot of times it was with cancer treatment, and the difficulty of it, how physically grueling it could be, and that kind of thing. And so Robin Roberts started talking to people about making your mess your message, sharing your story of your struggle, because hearing that story might help somebody else who's going through something similar. And that was kind of what I thought about when I thought about the story of Peter. Okay, yes, maybe we might look down upon him a little bit for walking out in the water and sinking, which we shouldn't, because how many of us would have even gotten out of the boat? And yet the story is certainly a testimony to Jesus, and it tells something about Jesus that is important for us to know, which is Jesus will be there for us when we start sinking in life. Jesus cares enough to be there with us when we are afraid. And so by talking about the times that we are afraid, the times that we do feel like we're sinking, by making our message, it gives us a chance to talk then about the great difference that Jesus has made in those moments, to help us to get through the times that we are afraid, to give us courage to face whatever it is that we're having struggles with. And we, by actually being open about those things more frequently, we would actually have a way of witnessing to the power and the love and the presence of Jesus in our lives. Which leads me to the verse in Romans that could probably be a sermon all in and of itself. And it was the final verse of the passage that we had this weekend. This might sound familiar to some of you. It is from Romans 10, verse 15. How beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. And the good news isn't, I can make it on my own. The good news isn't, I am strong and I can find it in myself to accomplish all things. The good news is that when I feel weak, when I do make mistakes, when I feel alone, or when I am struggling and afraid, then Jesus is there to reach out and to hold on to me so that nothing can pull me under. And how beautiful are the feet of those who carry that good news to other people who find themselves in fear, or find themselves overwhelmed, or find themselves struggling, or find themselves weighed down by mistakes that they've made in the past. And the good news is that Jesus comes to us in the midst of all of that and reaches out to us. Jesus loves us and is with us. Jesus will help us in the midst of things that make us afraid, because nothing makes Jesus afraid. Nothing can pull Jesus down. And so Jesus is with us in our human struggles. And it would actually be beneficial to many people, maybe even to the mission of the church, if we talked more about our messes and our struggles and the things that make life difficult for us, or the ways in which we make life difficult, because it also then gives us the chance to share the good news that Jesus is with us and how Jesus makes a difference in the midst of these life struggles, to remind us of God's love for us and that we are never alone in all of these moments. So those are some of the thoughts I had about the sermon and the scriptures after the fact. I invite you to also share your thoughts on the sermon, scriptures, or what I said in the video. Please feel free to leave a comment. And thank you so much for watching. God bless.